I got a little bit of a hot take coming in, I think. Like, maybe you guys might not agree with. So let's go Nottingham Forest.
It'll be interesting to see what moves they make, because they're usually very calculated with their signings.
And I feel like what we haven't talked about yet is I worry about their squad depth for next year with them being in Europa.
I'm sure we've got some loyal Hammers viewers. It was being nice.
I was calling for David Moyes' head.
This is what they do. They almost get relegated, then they go back up and play really well, and then they do the same thing. They're a yo-yo club.
Oh, this is our newly promoted club finishing 10th.
Yeah, this is our 2023-2024 way too early Premier League tier list. And we have brought on our special guest, Eric, here to help us. Our tiers are legit title contenders, Champions League contenders, Europa League, ? Newly promoted club finishing 10th, i.e. Fulham, mediocre, relegation bound, and then, of course, we have Chelsea at the bottom. So, Eric, who should we start with?
I think we should start with the obvious current champions, the hottest team at the end of the season, Man City.
Starting with Manchester City. I mean...
Hey, not yet. Inter can beat them for that title.
Name a better team right now than Man City. They're going for a treble.
We don't know yet.
Team in the world.
Inter could take them out. We don't know yet.
Inter could beat them. Stranger things have happened.
Yaya Toure is cooking that curse up. He's cooking.
Yeah, I mean, stranger things have happened. Inter could beat them. I think this one, in my opinion, is a non-negotiable legit title contenders. I think if we had them anywhere else except there, that we could not have a credible tier list, in my opinion. That's my unbiased opinion.
Unbiased opinion.
A legit title
I don't
contender.
think that's a very hot take from anybody here. I feel like we'd be on something strong, drinking or smoking wise, if we didn't put City up top. Honestly, this team has just got consistently better, and then they got one of the best young players in the world for pretty much budget price to what he should have been sold for. This just makes a lot of sense to me.
I can't disagree with that. Sergio Gomez is an amazing left back.
Oh, good lord.
He really made an impact to their Premier League title this year.
He played like 5 games.
He did.
Good for the lad.
I don't want to.
So no disagreements for me. They have the best. They're the best team in the world, in my opinion. They have the best player in the world. Manchester City going into
2 of the best players in the world. Really,
they do have 2 of the best players in the world.
They do. Yeah, and that's not going to change anytime soon.
They're not going anywhere.
Legit title contenders heading into next season. All right, let's go ahead and switch it up a little bit. Let's just go off the rails. Choose another random team. Crystal Palace is jumping off the page at me.
All right.
What are y'all's takes on Crystal Palace going into next year?
Have you heard the latest links to them?
I have not.
I've not.
They're looking at Potter.
Oh,
really?
Good lord.
Yeah, they're looking at Potter.
I mean, he does better than at Chelsea.
Yeah,
he did really good at Brighton, though. Like, is he better with teams that don't have any expectation?
Can you say he did well at Brighton when they did better when he left?
That's
probably
that's
not.
my thing.
But also Palace is the definition of average. So
yeah, and they don't have Zaha. He's gone.
Yeah, Zaha. Seeing links to potentially, I don't know if the rumors have flamed out anymore, but I was seeing Barcelona were interested in Zaha.
Last I saw was mostly Turkey, but he wanted somewhere.
That's what I was.
He wanted somewhere higher up, but
I saw a few Barcelona rumors, which I thought was kind of crazy for him. But yeah, he's most likely gone. They're still going to have Eze, who's looking like he's at the end of this year was looking like an absolute stud. He was killing it. I think he had in the last 7 or 8 games, he had to have at least 5 goals. It seemed like
he was contributing a lot, and
Eze and Elise are doing it from the midfield. They need those front players.
They need to go get a striker. They need to get a solid striker.
Edouard's not getting it done.
Edouard hasn't gotten it done since the first 3 games where he subbed on and scored.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. So what do we think? What do we think is the ceiling for Crystal Palace? What do we think is the floor?
Ceiling would be getting top 10. Floor would be relegation bound. So that means for me it's mediocre.
Yeah, mediocre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely
They finish,
vote
12th to
for
15th
them
again.
as well.
They do have some good young assets, like you said, in the midfield, and I feel like their backline's not terribly like bad. It's just they're young and they're still developing at certain
They're
spots.
mistake prone. That's the
They
problem.
are, but they also don't have a young keeper either. Like
There's
No.
there's going to be 5 or 6 teams that are probably in this mediocre tier, and Crystal Palace is probably the definition of mediocre in the Prem nowadays. DJ, who's next? Who we got?
I say we go with one of the newly promoted teams. We're going to go with the team that has the smallest stadium in the Prem at the moment. Let's go with Luton Town.
Luton Town.
The Hatters.
Admittedly, don't know a ton about them. I know that they have
That's okay.
a super small stadium, so I will lean on Eric's expert opinion or expert knowledge to guide me through Luton Town.
And DJ's. He knows stuff about
And
Luton
DJ.
Town.
Yeah, the Luton
Yes.
Town story is an incredible story, but I see them as a one-season wonder.
I do too. It's
Yeah,
relegation bound.
they don't have any ceiling opportunity to be that kind of what Fulham was this year, to be that newly
No.
promoted
They-
club that can finish near the top 10.
No,
They-
they've got no player in their team that stands out to me. I don't think they have an ownership that'll back them enough to compete outside the relegation zone.
Fair enough.
To add on to that for me with Luton Town is their team construction plan is usually to get bargains and spend as little money as possible and get the best assets out of that. But when you're in a top tier like that, is that going to work when you're trying to stay up and not be a yo-yo club? It is an incredible story. It's one of those stories where you go from the National League all the way back up to the top Premier League spot, but I don't see it withstanding past this season. If anything, they would be the last team in the relegation spots. They would barely just stay out if they found a way to do so, but I don't see it happening.
I will say with Luton, though, if they do stay up, Mpanzu is the best player in English history. He's the only player in the history of England that has gone from non-league to the Prem with one team.
That
That
would
is
be an
incredible.
insane story.
Yeah.
Kind of hope that happens now.
He's done it, but if he can stay up and they can win a trophy at some point, he'll be an absolute legend of the
Yeah,
game.
that would be
Also,
amazing.
shout out because I watched a couple Luton Town games this year. Shout out Elijah Adebayo. I'm a fan of his. He's a fun player to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Gonna
can see
be on
him
the
being.
FPL team next year.
I'm not saying that because I'm not giving away secrets, but he's a fun player to watch. He was always around the ball when I watched him, but does that mean it's going to translate to the top tier of English football? Probably not. But he's fun to watch.
Fair enough. Keep an eye out for him. All right. Next team. Who we thinking?
Eric's turn.
We're rolling through them. We're crushing this tier list.
I got a little bit of a hot take coming in, I think. Like, maybe you guys might not agree with. So let's go Nottingham Forest.
Nottingham Forest.
I'm excited for
Yeah.
this one.
All right. My opinions on Nottingham Forest. Man, probably they're not on our yearly awards coming up later. It's not on our yearly awards coming up later, but one of the top signings before this past season had to be Morgan Gibbs-White. Him going to Forest, playing that number 10 role, he was absolutely incredible. He kind of led them, him and A1E, led them out of the relegation zone this season, and he's going to be there again next year. And I don't really have any reason to believe they're not going to be right there fighting to stay alive in the Premier League next season. I don't see them drastically improving, getting up there near the top 10. I kind of see them as kind of in between that mediocre, potentially more so relegation bound sides.
Well, Eric, I want to hear this flaming hot take.
I've got them relegated.
Relegated.
Second season syndrome. They're not going to have Keylor Navas, arguably the best January signing of the season. Was that Keylor Navas deal? Because he saved them in goal.
They really don't have a keeper at the moment, technically, because Dean Henderson's going back to
Dean Henderson's
United.
probably going back unless they can buy him, but I would say they do buy Dean Henderson because now it's looking very much like United are bringing in Diogo Costa. But even with Dean Hendo, who was great to start season before he got injured, I just don't see that working out again for Nottingham Forest, especially if they keep Steve Cooper as manager. I've seen links of maybe they're going to want to replace him, but I see him in relegation zone this year.
See, here's the thing, and this is where this is our first disagreement so far. I actually kind of think that Nottingham Forest are actually going to be mediocre in the aspect of they are not afraid to blow some money on some players. They brought in, 16 players this year? I think they could do it again because the board's okay with trying to stay up. I don't see this team as a trying to become a yo-yo club. They're not pulling a Norwich or a Watford, going up and down, trying to get the money. I see them being mediocre, not relegation bound, because I think there's worse teams below them. That is my take.
Fair
But
enough.
I will agree to disagree.
I think I see them more. I see them more as relegation. I think that they spent a lot of money this past year, and it worked. They stayed up. I don't think they're going to be as spending this transfer window. I can see them definitely getting relegated. So I guess that's 2-1. We'll throw them in relegation bound. Honorable mention for mediocre. All right, I believe it's my turn. I'm going to go with probably another one of the more so surprising teams this year. I'm going to go with Brighton. What are your all's opinions on Brighton coming into this next year? It's looking like McAllister's headed to Liverpool.
Yep.
I haven't seen any other. I guess Caicedo's
probably going to
to a
go.
few teams. It's looking most likely Arsenal. It's looking like. So they're going to get purged a little bit, but
They also want a new
Deserbi is still
keeper.
there. Sorry,
They
go
want
ahead.
what?
They want a new keeper.
I mean, what's wrong with the keepers they have now, honestly? I mean, Sanchez is solid, and Steele played really well at the end of the year.
Sanchez wants out, is what I've seen.
Okay. And I guess Steele
I
is
mean,
in
rightfully
it.
so. I guess he lost his starting spot. If he doesn't do
Yeah.
it, he should have lost it, and it would make sense why he wants out. I thought Steele was pretty decent in net. So if he stays, I like him there in that position. They are a little bit old, I will say, at a few positions. In forward, Welbeck is very old.
Yeah.
Dunk is getting up there.
They need to spend some money on the strikers this year. That's 100% what they need to do.
They do. I mean, they have Ferguson, who's
They got
looking like
Ferguson.
he-
Ferguson is their star of the future.
Ferguson is all right, but I didn't see anything consistent enough to be like, oh, hey, let's just let this guy stay up top by himself. I'm just saying, not saying like bring in like blow the budget, but bring in someone else for competition and or rotation wise, someone to kind of replace Danny Welbeck.
Sorry, there's a drag race going outside of my apartment right now.
I think Dennis Zundorf had a really good showing at the end of the season.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I picked him as one of my FPL assets early on. Didn't work out for me.
Yeah. It came through at the end of the season, though. Eventually
Yeah.
it got there.
Because he wasn't in my team, but he was good. And then Enciso, playing as a striker, had some
Yeah.
really good goals. I think they're fine in the attacking front. I worry about their aging back line.
Well, and I feel like what we haven't talked about yet is I worry about their squad depth for next year with them being in Europa. That team's going to have to...
Yeah, they'll have to bring some players in, but
They
Deserbi was
are.
smart in bringing a lot of those young guys in late in the season to see how they were going to do. Buonanotte,
for sure.
Enciso.
I think they're going to have a
He
little
did
bit
some
of a
great
falling
rotating
of
near the
this
end of the
next
year.
I see them in the Europa League, Europa Conference League fringe spots. That's where I would like to put them.
That's
Yeah,
where I was
that's
going to
kinda-
say.
That's where I've got him as well. I think as long as Deserbi is still there, they're going to be doing quite well. I definitely see them potentially being in Europa League again.
I definitely
DJ,
could
who's
see them.
next?
I definitely could see Brighton falling a little bit this next year because of teams that don't have the money and the budget as the top six teams getting a Europa spot. We have seen in the past have kind of fallen off when it comes to league because they go for it in the European competition like you should. So I could see it happening, but I don't mind putting him in Europa because I do like Deserbi. He's a great manager. He's done a good job. Next team, let's go with Fulham.
All right, Fulham. Man, Alexander Mitrovic.
He's back.
It's pretty much their whole team.
Squad.
And then after he got hurt, suspended / hurt, it was doors.
More so suspended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It like the team didn't do as well, obviously, without him. And I guess you could say that about any team that you lose your main striker, your main goal scorer, you're going to fall off a little bit. I could see them finishing around the same spot, though. I think Fulham's here to stay, actually, in my opinion. I like their team.
Yeah.
And I think if Mitrovic comes out and doesn't do anything stupid like he did at the end of this year, I see them staying around the same spot.
I'd say the same. I say they have an outside chance at some sort of European competition just because Brighton and Villa are in it. They don't have the depth to do both. Challenge again for that spot and challenge for a win in those leagues potentially. So they could sneak in. But they've got competition from Spurs and Chelsea who have no European football.
And a lot of money. Well, at least Chelsea.
Yeah, Spurs got money, they just don't spend it.
That's true.
They're saving.
They're frugal.
Yeah. Maybe he's not driving home in a Kia. He's fine.
He'll be all right. I think that this is definitely a team that's going to fall in the mediocre tier for me. I think they looked pretty good, even without Mitrovic at the end. They're near the end of the season. Willian was doing super well. Harry Wilson. Piera was one of their biggest surprise performers this year. He did exceptional. I think that this team's going to be totally fine. I think that they're not going to be near a relegation. I also don't see them getting into a Europa League spot. They could potentially challenge for it, but in my opinion, they should probably fall around the mediocre tier.
Yeah, I put them in upper mediocre. I put them ahead of Crystal Palace.
I did too.
Head of Crystal Palace, yeah.
Yeah, because my worry about them is defensively. Tim Ream was a rock for them this season. He's now 35, long-term injury. Can he do it again next season? And if he can't, that's going to hurt.
That's true. Plus, also, I think it's hilarious how what Pep said about him. If you were 10 years younger, you'd be playing at City. I mean,
oh, yeah.
He played.
It's crazy. He hit his prime at 34, 35.
It happens. I mean, the game slows down for people at different times of their career, and it just kind of hit. He also played really well in the World Cup, in my opinion, too. So
as well as you can when you're managed by Greg Berhalter.
That's true.
Greg the Egg.
God, screw
right.
that dude.
I forget whose turn it is. Is it mine?
You just picked Fulham, didn't you?
No, I did.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So it's Eric's turn.
Editor, cut that out.
Yeah. Post-edit, Zach. Go cut that out. All right, who's next, Eric?
Let's talk about the Hammers.
Ooh, West Ham.
Fighting off relegation this season. Could still come home with a trophy to end it all, though.
That's true.
Potentially. That's a
I believe
weird...
that game is tomorrow?
June 7th. 7 days.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they spread them out over a week.
Next week.
Commercial and all that.
Yep. West Ham, definitely one of the teams that fell back a little bit this season, at least in the league standards.
Not just a little bit.
Yeah.
They were almost
nice.
Relegated at one point this season.
I'm sure we've got some loyal Hammers viewers. I was being nice.
I was calling for David Moyes' head for so long.
I still think he needs to be gone.
On that point, I know that we're talking about next season, but I called for Brendan Rodgers' head all season, and they waited way too long to fire him, and that's why they got relegated.
Yep, same almost happened to West Ham.
Yep.
That same almost happened to a lot of teams this year that probably shouldn't be where they're at or where they were.
I think West Ham
Go ahead.
bounced back to mediocre.
I see them finishing top 10
Top 10?
or 10th.
Wow.
I get like
What is
10th.
why do you see them jumping up so much?
Well, I think that they started hitting their stride and were playing in really good form there at the end of the year and started playing like the team that they probably should have been all year long. And I think that they're going to carry that after this Conference League final. I think they could do the same thing and have a better start to the season. I feel like if They have the players to do so. I see them being like, this is what they do. They almost get relegated, then they go back up and play really well, and then they do the same thing. They're a yo-yo club, meaning not actually going down, but like just yo-yoing on the table. So this is who West Ham is. They're going to be in the top 10 next year.
My counterpoint to that is I think they win the Conference League.
I do too.
They're in Europa League next season. They struggled with the the schedule congestion between Conference League and the Prem. I think they'll struggle again next season between the Prem and Europa League, and they'll sit around that mediocre spot.
The only reason why I don't think it's going to be as bad is because you don't have the World Cup this year, though.
Yeah, but they didn't have a lot of World Cup players that ended up with injuries or anything.
But
like that.
It did make. The
yeah, I
schedule
mean, it condense the schedule, but they need that depth to compete in the Europa League. I mean, look at this season. Our Europa League winners are Sevilla, and they finished 11th in the league because they were focusing all their energy on the Europa League title.
They're the kings of Sevilla. Sevilla's the kings of Europa, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it kind of does matter. I think where more so West Ham decides to put their motivation. I think if they are in a Europa League again, I think that even so that they had a very disappointing league season this year, finishing well below where their standards, and I think that they are going to be putting a lot more heart, I suppose, maybe is not the right word, but just try more in the league to finish higher. And I kind of lean more with DJ that they could potentially be challenging for top 10. I think what makes the most sense, and y'all can disagree with me if you want, but I think that they would probably be at the top of the mediocre tier for me.
See, I don't disagree with that in the aspect that I do see. All right, here's another counterpoint to Eric's counterpoint. So, what happens if they don't win Conference League? Do you think that they would still not?
They don't win Conference League. They could lose a player or two, being where they're at.
I think they're going to lose Declan Rice
different. They're definitely going to lose Declan Rice. I think he's gone. His price tag is ridiculous, but he's either going now or he's leaving for free. So they've got a decision to make there. But
he's gone. They're not going to lose him for free.
Bowen could maybe decide to try out a different league if no one else in the Prem wants him. Maybe he doesn't want to stick at West Ham. Haven't seen any rumors about it. That's just a feeling I've got. But if they don't win the Conference League, they could be in trouble. And they'd be in trouble financially if they win the Conference League. I think they need this money for some of their wage bills.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
So are we saying like top tier mediocre at least? Do you think?
I'm saying top of mediocre. Would you put them below Fulham or Crystal Palace, Eric?
No, I'm fine putting them above those two.
For now,
just because we've seen the quality that they have.
Yep.
I also think that this year showed that there's other teams that came out hot. Examples: Brentford and Fulham. So
4-0 Man United.
Yeah, so I could see
buzz
one of the two of those teams or both those teams kind of coming back down to earth, because I don't know if they're like top 10 consistent quality teams, because we haven't seen it before. This is the first time we've ever seen it. So
yeah, we had some real stinkers this season with Liverpool real early, doing awful. Chelsea pulling a Chelsea. Spurs pulled a Spurs in the most Spursy way possible.
As they do.
So, but I think there's some real teams to bang in a lot of goals and earn easy 6 points on next season.
Yeah, sure. Speaking of which, let's dive right into one of those weak defenses next year. What are y'all's opinions on Sheffield United?
Relegation.
I've got them in the relegation.
Relegation?
Yeah.
They're not going to 7th their first year back.
Yeah, the
You don't even think they can challenge for mediocre? They don't have the quality or the money to be up there?
No, because really the only other team at that low end of the table, I think they're going to sit right at the top relegation.
I also don't see a lot of players that I would just consider solid Prem talent at the moment, so they would have to do a lot of spending just to even be in the mediocre spot. So for me, I have them in relegation.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
We don't need to bicker about Sheffield United. I think. Would you guys rate them higher or lower than Luton Town and Forest?
I think Luton Town will be ranked the lowest.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. So you think you got Sheffield, Forest,
Luton Town.
or
Yeah, Sheffield Forest are kind of
above?
fighting for the same 17th position, in my opinion, or 18th position.
Agreed.
Yeah. Fair
Maybe
enough.
17th if someone else pulls a stinker next year.
Yeah. Fair enough. DJ, who we got next?
So here's my hot take. We're talking. Let's talk Burnley. Let's get all the newly promoted teams out of the way.
Yeah, Vincent
I have
Kompany.
them going in the top 10 off the rip.
Oh, this is our newly promoted club
Ooh.
finishing 10th.
This for me it is because of Vincent Kompany.
Well, it's the only one that we can say would be the newly promoted club finishing 10th if we're going to say that.
But that's the most likely. I feel like you can agree with that.
They need a striker.
There's always
They do.
one. There's always one of these that promoted teams that overperform.
If they can sign a striker, 100%, I'm in with that. They don't have a striker right now. Not a good one, at least.
Not
Chris
one
Wood
that
comes back.
Ahmad Diallo scored their most goals, and he's a loaned-in winger.
a lot of their team is loaned in though, so that's the biggest problem.
I think
what,
they'll
90
keep,
of them?
they'll keep a lot of them. I think Ahmad will even stay.
Here's the thing, and I agree with you on that, and the reason why is because I think people want to play for company. I think people like him as a manager. I think he's got good tactics. I think he can keep this team stayed up. I'm also a little biased because I'm a fan of his. And Eric is the reason why I'm a fan of his because he was coaching in the Belgian league, and Eric Anderlecht, exactly, and he put me onto it, and I became a fan. So I could definitely see this team being the newly promoted team that comes up and plays a lot better than the other promoted teams. I think this is this one spot on team that could stay up. Now, me saying they're going to finish in the top 10 is probably the hottest take you probably were going to hear me say in this whole group. But
I'll drive with it.
But I really like their young keeper. I like some of their additions that they had in loan on the defensive side of the ball or on the back line. I could see it with company's tactics. I could see them staying close to the 10th area spot.
Yeah, I can agree. I think they got a guaranteed 12 points on Luton and Forest. Maybe 15 or 18 off Sheffield United. So,
yeah, I admittedly don't know a ton about Burnley, but I do know that they, out of these promoted teams, seem to have the most prestige, and I think that potentially could carry them higher up into the rankings. And like I said, we always see one of these promoted teams do a lot better than everyone thinks. And I can see Burnley being that team, that newly promoted team that finishes 10th.
they could probably pull it off.
Fair enough.
Believe in Vincent Kompany.
All right. Let's see. Who do we want to go with next? This one will be probably a quick one. Let's go Arsenal. DJ's team, the Gunners, Eric's arch enemies.
That's
You
Chelsea.
got the. Oh, I thought you were going to show the Arsenal mug. Thought you were reaching for it.
I could
Just
definitely
gonna
do
find
that.
it. And there it is. I think that Arsenal are going to be relatively the same squad next year. I think that they were alongside of Brighton, one of the more surprising teams. I think going into this season, no one really had them. Everyone thought they were going to be pretty good. They made some good additions, but no one had them contending for the title as long as they did and putting up a fight. Not just a fight. Yeah, they were in a position to win. They were in a very good position to win the Premier League, and I think that I have them again below City, but no reason to think this team won't be a title contender next year.
I have them just in the Champions League.
Just Champions League?
Yeah. I think City are in a league of their own this next season.
Really?
Yep.
Why? What do you say? What do you think they're? Why do you think they're in a league of their own next season?
I
when
think
they weren't this
like
year.
you said just a few minutes ago, that everyone was surprised how well Arsenal performed. I think they overperformed this season, and we saw how one or two key injuries completely wrecked the team
Fumbled the basket.
in the long run. And
Yeah, the defensive injuries really
if
killed
they
them.
don't find new bench options in their defense, they'll be in the top 4, but not much more than that.
See, coming into this year, all I wanted was Champions League, and then going like halfway through the season at the World Cup break, I was delighted with how we played. This was kind of Arsenal team that I thought we could be, but I didn't think it was going to happen this year. I thought it was going to happen next year. So I think we build on that, and I do think we're going to bring in some assets to make the team a little bit deeper. I did love the Trossard pickup halfway through, nearly in the winter transfer window. I think he was good, solid depth, but also could start whenever Martinelli kind of dropped off at the end of the year. I do have them in Champions League because I do agree with Eric that City is just on a different level because of who they have. When you have KDB, Haaland, Foden, I mean, that team is going to keep getting better too because they're going to bring in somebody that's just going to absolutely be cracked as well because that's what they do. And also, you have to, like, they have Pep. Pep's one of the best managers in the world for a reason. I definitely see them being where they are at. My feeling was my feeling of the week last week was literally them being a treble winners. I have them winning the treble. This team's insane. So I have to put Arsenal in Champions League contender.
Yeah.
All right. I'll side with y'all. We'll put them in the Champions League contenders. Who we got
I'll
next?
also say in a league with City, you have to beat City to win the league.
Which we didn't do.
And I don't see anything in Arsenal beating City.
Yeah, they lost to him every time.
Yep, 3 games this
a lot
season.
of teams did. So they're definitely gonna have to beat them some next year if they want to have a chance.
Someone's
got to
beat
title
them.
contender. Yeah. Who we got next?
Let's talk Bournemouth. Had a pretty quiet season.
Not
Bournemouth?
a team
I
that I
like
thought
it.
was going to stay up this last year.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody did. I think anybody that made a prediction table, anybody that knows anything about English football, thought that this team was not going to stay up. I think most people had them in the relegation bound team. But if you watch this team play, they play well together, and they play smart football in the way that they don't do anything to kill themselves or hurt themselves in any way. They kind of just play within themselves, which is smart, especially with a team with that budget that they have. They really didn't spend that much money either.
Yeah, they really made no moves in the summer, and then they were the first ones to fire a coach this year. Scott Parker sent him packing.
Yeah.
And that
They
paid
were
dividends.
They were looking like a prime candidate to be one of those yo-yo clubs that just comes up, grabs the money, doesn't make a ton of moves, and then just goes right back down. But they really surprised me this year with how well they did. More so attacking than defensive. I mean, Solanke was one of the surprise performers this year at the striker position.
Yep. And Philip Billing coming in, just scoring goal after goal after goal as a CDM, really.
Billing is solid, though. Got to give him credit.
Got
He's a
Dango
good player.
Ulatara, who came in pretty hot when his transfer move in January.
Yep.
Unfortunately, this year, another mediocre year.
I was going to say, the question is, are they here to stay? Are they going to be mediocre? Or are they potentially going to be fighting to stay up?
I have them in mediocre, but I definitely see them fighting to stay up. Like they'll be the bottom tier of the mediocre team. They are definitely below Crystal Palace for me.
They could be the ones that sneakily slip down if Forest or Sheffield United really put a good season together.
Here's the next question for y'all. Do you think they're actually going to put some money towards a team and actually try to add assets, or do you think they're just going to do more of the same?
They spent quite a bit in the January window, and they brought in 3 players, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll just go for 1 or 2 defensive assets in the summer. Maybe another midfielder.
I think they'll run it. I think they'll run it back. I think that they'll kind of stick with what they got. I think that they want this group to mesh a little bit more and see if what they're really capable of. If they're capable of performing higher up in the table. But yeah, I agree with y'all. Definitely near the bottom of the mediocre.
They're definitely not like a
sides.
sexy team, so I don't see them doing anything too big or too ambitious, bringing anybody in. That they don't have a lot of money either. But I definitely see them being a solid Prem team next year that can be hard to go into with going to Vitality Stadium, which is also a smaller stadium.
There we go. All right, let's get right to it. Let's talk some bees. Let's talk the Brentford Bees.
Brentford Bees. Let's
what a
go.
great season they had this year.
Amazing.
Just even in the midst of the Ivan Toney controversy, they were able to still do so well. I mean, he didn't really miss a ton of time, but it was still a huge distraction near the back half of the season.
He will miss a lot of time now.
Yeah, he's certainly missing now, but I don't think they have a lot to be afraid of. To be honest, they looked good in those last couple games without him.
I think Brian Mbeumo's confidence has finally hit. I think he'll be their main striker next season. He had 18 goal contributions this season, I believe, 17 or 18. Most of those were assists, and I think he'll be the one getting those assists next season.
It'll be interesting to see what moves they make, because they're usually very calculated with their signings.
They just brought in a goalkeeper today.
Oh, really?
With Ray potentially leaving?
Ray is not 100% gone yet. They brought in Flecken from Messi Freiburg. He's a Golden Glove winner, I believe, in the Bundesliga this year.
See,
and,
this is why I love Brentford, though, is because of their money ball. They are money ball.
They spent 13 mil on Flecken, and they've got their price they want for Raya is 40. But Spurs has said they want to pay 20.
Moves.
So Spurs are only his real target right now, and they only want to pay 20. So it's going to go back and forth for a while.
It'll be
interesting to see if he leaves.
Yeah, well, his agent came out and said that if Brentford don't lower their price and allow him to leave, that he's prepared to stay one more season and leave for free next year. So in their Moneyball method, they have to cash in now and come to what other clubs are willing to pay, or they're going to end up losing for free next year.
Which would be bad.
I think that
he'll just be toxic in the locker room. They'll have 3 potential starting goalkeepers in that team that'll become toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that they ran super well. I think that they'll make some good underrated signings again this next year. And I don't think it's a hot take to say that they could be one of these. I don't know if they'll quite be Europa League level, but I definitely have them at the top of this mediocre tier for sure.
Yeah, I see them 8, 9, 10 with some sort of deep cup run.
I see that. So, wasn't it last year at the beginning of the year, like odds-wise, on most betting sites? Wasn't Brentford one of the top 3 teams to be relegated, like odds-wise?
I don't recall.
I think they were.
That sounds right. They were heavily doubted.
Yeah, and I didn't see why, because I thought that they had a good attack and they have a solid defense with a great goalkeeper. One of the most underrated goalkeepers, in my opinion, if you don't pay attention to Brentford. And this is they're a solid team that I think is only going to, if they stay together and then add a couple more pieces for like a pretty good price, like they make every single transfer, they're banging up for their buck. They use them and then they sell them away for twice as much as they paid them for, which is just incredible. So
they did lose one player for free this season.
Who was it?
Pontus Jansson.
Oh, okay.
He's going back to Sweden. He's playing for Malmo.
He's an older guy, though, right?
Yeah, he was, and he hardly played this season because he had some injuries.
Yep, I do remember that.
Wait, so we all agreed that they could be like 8, 9, 10, but you put them in mediocre?
Yeah, his little tier list doesn't really count for anything above mediocre besides Europa League.
I mean, mediocre. Is there that big of a difference in mediocre and Europa League, like challenging for Europa? I mean, do y'all think they could challenge for Europa League? We could put them at the bottom of the Europa League question mark if you think that they could challenge for it.
If Tony was not suspended, I would say yes.
I think they still could, but it's going to require a lot. It's going to require another stinker from someone else in that top 6, 7 places this season. Mm-hmm. It's going to require that if Tony comes back and they keep him, when he joins back up in November, December, he hits the ground running immediately like he never missed a day.
Mm-hmm. Which is a lot to ask.
Do it. Let's ruffle some feathers.
I'm fine with it.
Put him up there, and maybe we change this to 10th question mark.
That's
kind of as a middle ground.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like
We're
where
heavy on the B teams: Brighton, Brentford, Burnley.
Yeah. Buzz.
We're missing Bristol City. Come
I
on
like
up to
this
the front,
Brentford
guys.
team. All right, who we want to discuss next?
Let's go Villa.
Aston Villa.
And their
With
new
their
crest.
their new.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do we think of that first? Let's.
It's the Chelsea crest flipped around and they changed the color.
That's true. It really is.
I didn't notice that.
They had such a
But you
good
can see
crest
it
that they had
right
to go
here,
and
right
change
beside
it.
each other.
Yeah.
I get why.
Griffin.
I get why they're trying to change their crest, trying to get something new. But like, why change the old one? It was such a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually think that I'll start the Villa conversation. I think Europa is definitely in contention for them again. I think with Unai Emery coming in, he showed that he got this team in the right. I mean, they were kind of fighting relegation there for a little bit. Obviously, very beginning of the season.
Yeah. So I actually saw a chart that it was teams that sacked their managers and their net positions gained after the sacking. Villa did the best. They gained 10 spots in the table after sacking Gerrard.
And I don't understand how Gerrard was having such a big problem with the talent that is on this team, but he was, and he kind of lost the locker room.
He's a bad manager.
He is a bad manager, obviously, based
Makes
on
Frank
what
look good.
But I think that Unai Emery's a solid manager. I just don't think Arsenal gave him a chance, really, in my opinion. I think we went on hard times and we weren't ready defensively for what he was wanting to do, and we just kind of blamed him for it, which most managers get the blame for bad team performances. Then he went off with the Yellow Submarine over in La Liga, won Europa, and then now is back in the Prem, and I think he's got this team where they should be, which is Europa, and I think they're going to be in solid Europa League. They should be fighting for Europa, if not trying to. I don't know that they ever will, but Europa is where I have them.
Yeah, I think that there's nothing really differentiating this team between Brighton, Brentford, those other teams that could potentially be challenging for Europa. I think near the end of the season, Ollie Watkins was just a man possessed. He was going crazy. He was scoring so many goals. They're going to have Diego Carlos back. He is a very good center back. I think that this has always been a team that has made very savvy moves with their transfers. And I'm right there with you. I think that this could be a team that is challenging for Europa. I think that with the assets they could potentially lose, I think that it's a real discussion if we should put them above or below Brighton.
I don't disagree with that. I think if they lose Martinez, it's below, but I don't know if Martinez is on the move or not.
He's linked to Chelsea, but that'd be a step down as far as going from Conference League to Chelsea with Jarnett in Europe. But if you're promised the main role at Chelsea, it's kind of an attractive offer.
It is.
Yeah. And
Ashley Young is gone.
That's true.
He's left on a free.
Let's go in between. Let's go right below Brighton with them in the Europa League question mark. I like that. I think that feels like a good spot for them. All right. Let's go Man U. Let's go Manchester United.
Champions League contender for me.
Champions League contender. No hesitation there.
That is what United demands of that team. Their fans, and I think if anything lower than that is,
they will be in the Champions League this season. So you think they're a squad that can be in the Champions League and do well enough in the league to be back?
Yes, it's United.
Okay. I mean, there was a few years there where United were.
They have a good manager now. Eric Ten Hag has got this team where they need to.
Oh,
I think they're top of Europa League.
Oh my goodness!
they're top of Europa League. Not even contending for Champions League.
They only got Champions League this year because Chelsea, Liverpool, and Spurs didn't.
Okay, and you see those teams bouncing back up, so you think that
at least Liverpool
most likely
and maybe Chelsea bounce back up.
Yeah,
Liverpool definitely will.
I could see that.
I guess we could put them in contenders because it could go down to the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that they're for me going to be definitely
Also
below
depends
Arsenal,
how
but
early
also
they
in
get kicked out of the
contender.
Champions League.
Yes, that is very true. It's looking. The big news today was Mason Mount incoming.
Yeah, that was a shock
for Manchester United. I think that's going to be honestly a fantastic signing for them.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's still a very, very. People are forgetting about how quality Mason Mount is, and he was just lost in Chelsea's just utter sadness this year.
Yeah.
And he's a very, very quality player, and he's going to make an impact at Manchester United.
It's also heavily reported.
He's also hurt, right? This last year, he's hurt all year, right?
A little bit.
Okay.
He's in and out of the lineup.
Yeah. They also are reportedly going to spend the $70 million on Diogo Costa,
which makes sense because I think
he's
De Gea
goalkeeper.
Portugal's number one.
De Gea might be on the move anyway this year, so
They're reporting that he's going to renew, but on reduced wages, with the acceptance that he's not going to be a starter anymore. They're bringing in Costa to kind of learn from him and take over at the same time.
All right, Manchester United in the Champions League contenders.
I still think De Gea needs to get out. Like, I feel like he's still got
think
some.
Any
some
team in
quality.
Spain would take him.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
For sure, yeah.
Well, except for like your top teams that already have your best
history.
goalkeepers, but
Fair.
Yeah, I think he'll be back in Spain for sure. Who you got next, DJ?
Let's get him out of the way. Let's talk about Chelsea.
All right, Chelsea.
Put him down in the Chelsea spot and let's roast him for a little bit.
I mean, how can we not? They've earned it. They spent the most money ever recorded in human history.
It was insane how much talent
jokes aside, they
they had on
spent so much money, brought in so much talent in the January window, and for them to arguably be worse than they were in the first half of the season, it's honestly astonishing.
The only thing that kept them up were the points that they earned under Tuchel.
Yeah.
That was a differentiator.
It's hard to not clown on Chelsea for this past year. It's looking like Teo Kovacic is heading to Manchester City. I'm seeing that heavily reported.
If they can't keep Gundogan, they're trying their best to keep Gundogan.
Okay.
Gundogan was going to Barca.
It's not final. His whole reason to go for Barca was Barcelona was offering 3 years, and City's offer is only 1 year. City have come back to the table with 2 years. So it's a matter of
the Gundogan domino.
How much guaranteed income does he
over to
want?
Barcelona could mean Kovacic goes to City, but he wasn't playing a ton for Chelsea off and on during the season. I don't know.
No one was really playing for Chelsea. They were on the pitch, but they weren't playing.
Yeah, we'll leave them in the Chelsea tier. But honestly, where do y'all see them this coming season?
They should be in the top 10.
They have to be Europa League contenders at the very least, or it's another. They're gonna. They're gonna call for Bully's head to sell the club.
Mm-hmm. Even though he's spending all this money, which is what most fans want.
Yeah.
To put back the team. He's back in the team, but it's not. I feel like they're not. They're just going after names. They're not going after fits, and I feel like that's the biggest obvious reason why the team didn't work out this year.
Yeah, and well, the latest rumors now, since Pochettino's officially in, as much as I hate to say that, he's gone and done it. He's already axing people out of the team.
I mean, that's good.
João Felix is going back to Atletico. He doesn't want him. Lukaku, he says he does want to work with, and he wants him to come back and not stay at Inter. He wants Koulibaly gone, but Koulibaly doesn't want to leave, because why would he? Todd Bowley gave him a 5-year freaking deal.
Right.
$200K a week.
I'd probably stick around for that.
I mean, is his first year in the Prem. I mean, I don't blame him. Koulibaly?
Or he just joined in the summer.
Yeah,
It's been a long season.
Yeah.
It has been a long season.
Okay.
Yeah, he left from Napoli. Yeah. So
starts back up in 2 months.
Love it.
So much has happened this season. Yeah. So yeah,
it's great how fast the season starts back up. But I agree. If they don't finish top 10, there's going to be heads that will roll for Chelsea, and they're a top club that demands to be. That would be their bare minimum would be in the top 10. So if that doesn't happen, then it's going to be a rough scene rough scene there.
Yeah, it's like the first time since the '80s not finishing in a top 5 spot.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's
crazy.
Yeah, they're
Hilarious.
in a bit of dark days over there.
I love it.
Well,
Dark
they've got a
days.
great loanee that was a really good asset to Brighton this season, Levi Colwill.
Mm-hmm.
And he's coming back to Chelsea expectedly because that's Poch's thing. He likes to work with the young players. That's why he wants KK gone. He wants Silva to step down as the captain, potentially. I've seen some rumors on that on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Despite Chelsea being as bad as they were, Thiago Silva ended up in a lot of teams this seasons.
Right. Just because he's such a quality player.
Yeah, they've got to finish top 5 or it's dark days for them.
For sure. No
Might
doubt.
be a very short stint for Poch if he doesn't get them up there. Too.
Yeah, which would be typical Poch fashion, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
unless he's at Spurs.
Yeah.
Wow. We almost
Let's
won a
move
Champions League.
That's what I was saying.
True.
Yeah. Then he
Let's,
asked for financial backing, and Levy said no, and that's what happened.
Enough of that crappy soap opera story. No one cares.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about Poch, we're talking about Levy. Let's go to Spurs.
Oh God.
All right.
Let's keep it in the family.
Hotspur.
Yep. Let's do it.
I think that
My
they're
club.
Yeah, we'll let you lead, Eric. What do you? It's your
Promo.
club.
Disappointing
Go in.
season. We'd probably be right down there with Chelsea fighting off relegation if it weren't for the Harry Kane. 30 goals
Honestly,
in the
his
season.
season kind of got just because of Holland. His season kind of got lost with how amazing it was.
Yeah, 30 goals, and he ended up with. Did he have double-digit assists, or was he just below?
I want to say he was just below.
Oh, he had 3 assists. Yeah, he was
I was
doing
going
most
to say,
goal scoring
I feel like
himself.
he didn't.
He
get
was
that many
nowhere
assists.
near.
Yeah. 30 goals, 3 assists. Just the workhorse and backbone of the entire team this season.
He honestly, is the only
Rumors
one that-
are he could be gone. It's really up in the air. He's on holiday right now. There's no telling what his brother's chirping in his ear about.
Yeah,
Levy has come out and said that they will not sell him to Man United, though. No amount of money will make him sell to Man United. It's reported, there's quotes that Spurs would rather lose him for free next year than let him go to United. So,
I can
sticking
respect
to their
that,
guns on
though.
that one.
I can respect
Yes.
it though.
yeah, I mean,
they could get a lot of money.
they're our biggest competition for a top 4, top 5 spot, arguably.
Yeah.
So,
If they want to be successful, it would not make sense to move.
why'd we give them a goal scorer that's scored 25 plus for the past 7 seasons?
Yeah.
But Benzema could be out of Real Madrid this summer, and that could be a attractive target for Harry Kane. So,
I mean, he'd easily have a chance to win a pretty big trophy, which he hasn't been able to do at Spurs. So I
Yeah.
understand
hasn't won on the
the
Spurs.
want to. Yeah. So Kane is insane. I also think the Son, because of Conte's system, kind of got pushed aside, which is a mistake because I think Son is still class. He had a disappointing season on Son's level, which is hard to live up to, honestly, because Heung-min Son is one of the best football players in the world. I don't think
Golden
that's
boot last year to basically nothing this year.
Yeah, which is he's one of your best players. Why don't you use him? And the manager didn't, which I think is a huge mistake. I do think that Spurs push a little bit ahead for Brighton for Europa, in my opinion.
Hey, I'll take that. That's my
That's what
hope.
I was going to say. I was going to say definitely the leader in the Europa tier, if not the bottom of the Champions League.
Yeah.
I think that, especially if Harry Kane
Well, I mean, Eric, where'd you have
is
him?
still there. There's no reason to think that they won't be there.
You're a Spurs
I had
fan.
him around that Europa League, Conference League area. I don't think we're making Champions League this year. We don't have a manager yet. We don't have a director of football right now. We don't know if Kane's staying or leaving. We have no
That's a
idea
lot of
what the
question marks.
transfer targets are going
Yeah,
forward.
a
We know
lot
we
of
want
questions need to be
the
answered.
club wants Raya, but that's all we know.
And in what was the stuff I
It's a
saw?
weird
about,
thing to be the only thing that they know.
Oh, we're keeping Kulusevski.
Okay, that was
Yeah.
you literally answered. You read my mind. I was going to
Yeah.
ask what's going on.
We're
with
keeping
Kulusevski.
Kulusevski. We're not keeping Danjuma, and we want Raya.
And honestly, you need to get rid of Richarlison. That's just my opinion.
No, Richarlison. He wasn't. He didn't have enough time to get into the team. You see, he can score goals with Everton. He scores goals for Brazil. He just needs the time. And for most of the season, he's playing as a right winger, which didn't suit him.
Yeah, he's more of a central player.
If you do lose Kane, he's your number one guy. So
he's our number 9 in the future if Kane's gone.
Yeah. And how old is Richarlison's still pretty young, isn't he?
25, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say around 25.
Yeah, 24.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see Tottenham this upcoming.
If we can get Europa League
season.
or Europa Conference League and actually try to win the thing this time, unlike under Jose Mourinho when the team gave up in the Conference League, we got beat by a team with a manager that's sitting in prison. Just any trophy will do good. Fight for another Carabao Cup, something. We haven't won a
any kind of trophy. Any kind of trophy.
We're going on.
They're not making Champions League. They gotta
15 years without a trophy. Now we need a trophy.
But also,
let's talk
about how good Spurs have been. As an Arsenal fan, it doesn't make me happy saying that, but this is the first time they will be not in Europa League or any kind of European football league. For like 14 years, Eric, was it?
It's 13 seasons, I believe.
Okay,
outside
like something around there.
Inside European football, yeah.
That's an incredible run of great.
And
play.
6 of the last 7 years have been in the Champions League.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, obviously you want to win some trophies in that time, but you have to give credit where credit is due. That is a long, outstanding form of good football.
We got so close until Sadio Mane cheated.
No doubt. Speaking of Sadio Mane,
his former
let's
club.
talk Liverpool.
His former team.
Club.
Biggest signing of the summer so far.
Oh yeah,
Big Mac.
Yep.
Big Mac. It's not here we go yet, but it's looking like it's
all but here we go.
All but here we go.
He's got the pen in his hand. He's waiting for the papers to be
That's
delivered.
the knock on Liverpool the last 2 to 3 years is their midfield. They've got great attackers. Their defense is
They keep buying
world-class. Attackers. Yes,
but they keep rolling
I think
Jordan Hendo and James Milner and Naby Keita out of the hospital every season.
And Thiago. So I think that Alexi McAllister is going to be a great signing for them. I was mentioning to y'all earlier today that he's so good at going forward, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of role he has here with Liverpool because he's not going to be going as forward with their.
I think he'll do exactly what Curtis Jones did. Curtis Jones did those last couple of games for Liverpool. Jones played as that left center mid and was always in the box waiting for that ghosting goal because no one was watching him. Everyone was watching Nunez and Jota and Salah, and then you get a center mid that walks up there and just bangs in a goal. He'll do that for Liverpool.
So what are we feeling for Champions League contenders?
100%.
Yeah.
This year was a abysmal.
I was definitely going to say Champions League contenders. The question is, do we rate them?
They're ahead of United.
Below?
They're ahead of United.
United.
As
Did
long
they smack
as
United this season?
As long as Salah is still breathing, they're ahead of United.
Yes, 7-0. They destroyed.
Them.
Could Arsenal take a step back and Liverpool jump them?
100%.
They could be those 2-3 team. They could go back and forth all season at that 2-3 spot. I'm fine keeping them both right there, alphabetically for now.
Okay. No title contention for Liverpool?
No, I think the only title contender is Man City.
Fair enough. All right, that's right. We got 3 teams left. We're closing in. We're almost done. Let's talk Wolverhampton Wolves.
Wanderers.
Yeah.
Whatever. That was close. Close enough for an American.
I'm on the fence about the Wolves.
They're mediocre.
I could see them almost relegation bound.
Ooh. Why so?
They don't have a goal scorer.
They do not.
They have it for the last 3 or 4 years, and they've stayed up.
Yeah, and the time might come that's not going to work. And there's some rumblings that Lopetegui mentioned in an interview recently, post game, the last game of the season, potentially about an FFP issue coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Loaning and Matheus Cunha screwed their wage structure up or something, or if they signed too many players, or Neves is on too big of a contract. I don't know what the deal is there, but Jose Sa is one of my favorite goalkeepers in the league, and I think he's phenomenal. But he can only do so much when the team lets the ball come towards him so often.
Yeah.
Very facts.
And if Lopetegui's not doing well, they may sack him.
Yeah.
So
I think this is one of those teams. I'm kind of with you. I think that they could be like Southampton was this year. They've been up for so long, and they could potentially drop down. I think I've got them at the top of the relegation.
That's where I was thinking. I think they hit their ceiling last year.
Tier. Yeah. What do you think, DJ?
I think that they're actually a little bit ahead of Bournemouth for me, but that's just me. If y'all agree, 2v1. But
yeah.
I see them being able.
Bournemouth's got a little bit better attack than Wolves, and I think the attack is just so big in the Premier League.
But that didn't matter this year because Wolves finished above Bournemouth.
That's a good point.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's hard to say. They both had bad starts. They both changed managers this season, but man, they just can't score goals. And if they lose one or two players, namely Neves, there's been rumblings that he could want to go somewhere else. He's not happy just consistently playing in the league and not competing for trophies.
Makes sense.
It feels like they just don't have a ceiling. They're not going to get up there in that in a Europe league. So it just feels like it's time for them to reset. I feel like they could potentially fall back down and kind of have a reset.
And they've got a really good young core that they could drop down to the championship and do well with. But
no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're definitely one of those ones fighting, I think, the 16, 17, 18 spot this season.
I feel like Wolves is one of those teams where they had the chance a couple of years ago when they were in the top 10, 2 years in a row, and they feel like they didn't go for it, especially on the striker.
They relied heavily on Jimenez, and ever since his injuries, he's been a changed man.
He has been, which is understandable.
Loaning Diego Costa in was not the solution.
It was not. that was a Band-Aid over a big old gash kind of problem.
A creative midfielder that La Liga teams didn't want on loan. Didn't really help him out much either.
Nope.
Because you can't be a creative midfielder when there's no one to send the ball to up top.
Well, you can send it to somebody because he can outrun everybody, but Adama can't finish and he can't pass.
Adama's best finish was against Man City 2 seasons ago.
It was
that hat trick.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think Wolves are probably either probably relegation or barely surviving.
Yeah.
Speaking of barely surviving, let's talk about Everton. Killing these segues.
Yeah. I think 10th question mark.
Yeah,
I think
right there in the 10th question mark. You think that
I think that'd be
they can do better?
Resounding. I think they can do better this year, for sure. Especially if they keep Dyche. He's got them playing really well.
I agree if they keep Dyche. I think Dyche is going to get them to play together.
Well, Dyche kept Burnley up for all those years.
True.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't working. But that's because Burnley quit spending money.
Mm-hmm.
Everton don't have a ton of money, and they're financially hurt a little bit. It hurt a lot more if they went down. But I think they can get 10th this year, lose some of their top wage earners potentially, and reset for another 10th or somewhere around there the season after that even, and build their way back up to the European spot.
I see them around 11th or 12th. That's where I have them.
I mean, 2 seasons in a row they've taken it to the last match day and not gotten relegated. Something's got to give. They got to go back up eventually.
I think they're too prestigious of a club to stay hanging around the relegation zone for too long. I'm kind of with you. We'll go bottom of the 10th. We'll have
the original Liverpool.
We'll have Burnley ahead of them. Take that, Everton. All right. Our final club.
The state of Saudi America. Saudi Arabia.
Newcastle United, the wealthiest club in the Premier League.
In the world.
To wrap us up, I think I'm just going to go ahead and drag them there, and y'all can let me know if this is a hot take or not. Champions League contenders.
That's about right.
Yeah. They're in Champions League this year for the first time in a while. I guess it's not really
that much of a hot take if they're currently in Champions League.
They're heavily linked to James Maddison.
Yeah, they have the money to spend and improve their club.
Yeah. They spent $70 million on Alexander Isak last season. any hole they have in the team, they're going to fill with
Did it not kind of feel like Isak wasn't a summer transfer? It felt like kind of he was signed like near the end of last year, because that's when because he was hurt for so long and he just contributed so much at the end of the season and did so well. It felt like he was like a new signing, like halfway through the season almost. And he really popped, and he looked good. And I mean, Eddie Howe he's right up there, in my opinion, as one of the most highly respected managers in the Premier League. So
him and Isak and Wilson benefited from not going to the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
They had all the time in the world to just train with the team, and most of that team. Did anyone on that team go? Trippier
did. Trippier went.
Trippier, Pope.
Pope was the backup keeper for England. He didn't really play.
Trippier, Pope, and
did Bruno G?
No, Bruno G did. Joelinton did. Bruno G did.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Like they had like maybe 4 total. They're starting 11 go off to the World Cup.
Yeah.
The rest of the other 8 players got to sit back and just.
Yeah, they looked really good this season. They had that run during like the middle of the season where they had like 8 or 9 clean sheets in a row. Their defense looked almost unscorable on.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to be right up there as a Champions League contender again, especially with all the money they have, all the there's a little weird rumor out there about Neymar.
Yeah, that's Neymar's also linked to United though too. That's
and I've also
Manchester
seen Chelsea
United
too.
Yeah, he's definitely leaving PSG. Where he goes, that'll be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going where the money is, he'll be headed to Newcastle. So we'll see. But yeah, I got him at the Champions League contenders. I don't see him above any of those other 3 above them.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so those are your 5 teams there in the Champions League for sure, in my opinion. Or 4, and one of them is not going to make it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But
yep. Well, there we go. There's our way too early Premier League tier list.
Screenshot it now and come flame us this time next year.
We'll review it at the end of the next season in 10 months. No, 14 months. And
it'll be almost 12 from now.
Yeah, you're right.
Next May.
I'm bad at math. But Eric, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it was great to sit here and talk Premier League football. Yeah,
no doubt. DJ, I say that we wrap it up there. Honestly, we save the yearly awards for next week. Have the guests or the viewers clamoring for more.
Always.
The content train doesn't stop. We'll be back next week with our yearly Premier League awards. We'll talk MVP. We'll talk most improved. What players? We'll do more of a player central segment, talking about which players impressed us, which ones did we think had kind of a down season. DJ.
Yes.
Let's have your feeling of the week.
Feeling of the week. It's more of a prediction for next year.
Okay.
And since we were doing predictions, I'm going to go with the theme, and we're going to keep doing soccer or football. I'm going to go with. I say Brentford get Europa easily next year. That's my hot take and feeling of the week.
Ooh, I know Eric likes that.
Yes, sir. Only if it means that they don't beat Spurs to it.
I'm okay with that if they
could be a possibility, honestly.
I've got to give my pecking order of loyalty to London clubs. Spurs are first.
Yeah. All right, my feeling of the week. It's going to be a hot take. Get ready for it. Manchester City lose the Champions League final.
Ooh.
We'll see how that one. Your feeling is not there.
Tune in next week when City win the final 5-0.
What's Eric's feeling of the week? Our first guest's feeling of the week.
Yes, our guest feeling of the week. What you got, man?
I was
could be anything.
For this. My feeling of the week is the MLS is going down a dark path with this crap they're trying to pull with Messi. That's all I'm going to say.
Agreed.
I don't like it. Do not like it.
Don't get me wrong. I love to see. I want to see
the MLS successful, man.
Just signing Messi and twerking for him is not the way to be successful.
No, definitely not. It's not.
Definitely not. All right. From everyone here at the Feelings Over Facts podcast, I'm your host, Zach Simmons. Here with my co-host, Daniel Jones, a.k.a. DJ. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Eric, for being our first guest.
Hey, awesome to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
And everyone have a wonderful rest of your evening and good morning.
Peace.